I'm from Austin, born and raised, 43 years old now. It's 2015. And for the majority of my life, I lived in a way that was very challenging for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I went through some things in a very selfish way that caused a lot of pain and suffering over the course of a good half of my life. I went through 2 marriages, failed at every relationship that I'd ever had, and in the wake of all this turmoil, I found myself on this amazing journey. I had to do some serious inventory on the things that were going on in my life in order to be able to see the way that we're all really supposed to be living. If you knew me over the past 20 years, then it's likely that you knew the kind of person that I was. I share that with you real quick so you'll understand the true blessing that God's given me. He changed me, and He turned things around in my life, and He did so in a very dramatic way. See, there was a time in my life where I didn't know what God asks of us. I was raised in a very faithful family. We had the belief of God, but looking back now in retrospect, we didn't really have the practice of God's Word in our lives. I recognize that now. But because of that, I faltered with a lot of unrighteous things, the ways of the world. I got in line with what others were doing, thinking that it was okay to do whatever I wanted. I found out, like a lot of people do, that there is a very specific way God asks us to walk, and there's a reason why. Where it really started for me was right around the year 2000, 2001. Things started to happen to me spiritually that I couldn't understand and that I couldn't explain, but I recognized that there were some things going on there. Now, where it really starts to take a turn for me is in about 2003. I was in such a tailspin with my life that I got divorced, and I went through a very messy divorce with my ex. For the next several years, I was so shattered that I literally stayed in a higher state. I was drunk or high or, despondent. I didn't know if I was coming or going for a while there. When I finally came to about 4 years later of the different things that I had put myself through, I recognized that, I was so far behind on my responsibilities towards everyone and everything that I didn't really know what to do. So one evening, I literally found myself in a dark room, sitting alone, thinking, what's going on? Why am I here? And I heard a voice, and that voice said, "You don't really think you're here by accident, do you?" So I had to really think about that for a little while because I was trying to put these pieces together, and that started me on this quest, this journey, this path that I found myself on today to discover the truth of who I was at that time. A lot of people who go through the same sort of things that I went through, selfishness or self-destructive behavior or, anything unrighteous, in order for us to really get past these kinds of things, we have to really take an inventory of the sort of persons that we are. For me, it was really challenging because, inside I wanted to believe that I was doing right, but the truth of the matter was that a lot of people were suffering because of me, especially the ones closest to me. So I had to really look at myself and examine why that was happening. So as I gradually started to take these really close looks at my behavior, I started to have some extraordinary encounters with otherworldly persons. This part of the journey is where it becomes quite challenging for people, especially here in the material world. Most people understand what they see: the trees, the sky, the birds, the ground, people. The experiences that we have in the material world, that's what most people only see. But there is another spiritual side of life that happens all the time. So I started being able to see that spiritual side at the same time I was experiencing the material, and that was the challenging part, discerning it all. I found later that, that's really what a lot of the religions that we experience here in the world are geared towards helping us to understand, is that there is a spiritual aspect of life, that once we have that discernment, we're able to move through it in a better way. Well, factoring all the things that I had already done and gone through at that time, I had to really get to a place of understanding that would allow for me to to move in a better way. So I didn't recognize at the time, but God was preparing me for something that was to come. I started having visits by extraordinary, otherworldly persons. At first, it kind of startled me because I didn't recognize if I was, losing it, or if I was, going crazy, or if I'd lost my mind, or if something had happened. I didn't really grasp it at first, but I started to hear a voice. Then I started to hear voices. And then I started to see the persons who were speaking to me. And they were all on a spiritual level. And it turns out that they were angels and otherworldly persons that God had put there on my path to help me discern the things that I was going through in order to get to the place where He needed me to be. So that starts our journey, coming from that shattered, broken place that I once was at, in order to be able to learn to see the person that I was, so that I can grasp the direction that God wanted me to go in.